firefight after stowing away in a top secret mech designed to purge the galaxy of estrogen.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great.
Neckbeards write this shit. $5.
30.
20. 30 right here.
30.
How much sex?
How much sex? I'm thinking
No
none.
sex, lots of
Zero.
teeth.
Because they write what they know, which is misogyny and misunderstanding, but definitely not what a woman's body looks like or what sex is like. So they stick to giant robot fights and hilarious misunderstandings.
Yep.
Jesus Christ. If you have a relationship that is characterized by hilarious misunderstandings that lead to fights, you're in a shitty relationship. Okay, so where were we? 30?
Yep.
30. Do I hear 35? Going once? Going twice? Sold for 30. A Certain Magical Index 2, Part 1, Episodes 1 to 12. So it's the first half of the second season. DVD and Blu-ray. I mean, Magical Index was pretty good.
Yep.
So, do we have a minimum on this? Just so you know.
Yeah, but
Offer me 5?
10.
10. Do I hear 15? What's our minimum? Fuck you. Do you want to pay 20 for this? I didn't think so. We're done. Right. Like, if you want to sell the entire first season, minimum bid 20, we'll probably get up to 15. People bump 5. No problem. If you want to sell the first half of the second season, don't put a minimum fucking bid. Okay. So,
Rant.
what? Rant, yeah. So the guy from Brazil.
Yep.
Thank you for reminding me. In the Wendy and Mary Women's Wisdom at Work panel, there was a guy.
Oh no.
There were multiple men in that room, including myself. Here's what I did. I'm like, keep your questions short. Wendy and Mary are great. They reserve the right not to answer stuff, you know. And then I sat the fuck down because I was neither a woman nor in the animation industry. So this guy, second last question of the panel, said, I don't have a question, I just want to make a statement.
Was this you?
I wasn't there, I just got here today.
So he said, blah, 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 blah accusations, blah, blah unfounded, blah, blah, I'm talking about Vic, blah, blah, you should defend him. So Vic Mignogna has been accused.
Yep. And he's
And
suing
that's
now.
all I'm aware is that he's been accused of interacting with underage fans in an inappropriately sexual manner.
Yep.
Vic's response has been
A lawsuit?
Yep.
vigorous. So in that context, a male weeb standing up in a women in the industry panel and demanding that they defend men accused of sexual misconduct. So I stepped in just before Mary launched herself over the table on a column of pure rage, and I saved his life.
Why?
Because it was my role to be the bad guy, not Mary's. So I said, you know, we're done, question over. You don't have a, I said, you get 3 sentences, ask a question. He didn't, and I said, okay, you're done, next. And this is a good example of the kind of shit that convinces me that, by the way, thank you for your contribution to charity. Give that guy one last hand. So, in another example of why I am thoroughly convinced that weebs have suffered sufficient trauma to need fucking therapy. Every year I do a bit on the go to therapy, and every year I have someone come up to me either beforehand or afterwards and say, so I listened to your advice last year and I went to therapy. Thank you for suggesting it. Because, and then like some guys are like, I got laid this year because of that. Or I got to therapy and oh my God, my childhood was so fucked up and I didn't realize. And my life is so much better. Whatever, right? So in an example of why, another example of why I'm thoroughly convinced there are at least one person in this room who could benefit from therapy. This dude walked up and did something that trauma survivors refer to as JADE, J-A-D-E. There's a website called Out of the Fog, which once you realize you are or have been in a deeply unhealthy relationship with a manipulative person, the Out of the Fog website is very useful because it teaches some techniques and some concepts that help you sort of disentangle yourself from someone who is entangling themselves in unhealthy ways in your life. JADE is an acronym. It stands for Justify, Argue, Defend, and Explain. What happens is, usually in the context of an abusive relationship, the abuser will train the other person to respond to accusations at length, to explain their motives, to justify their decisions, to defend their positions, and to explain what they were thinking when something just happened. Because when someone does this, they are, to an extent, admitting they did something that the other person has a reason to disapprove of. Usually someone who's been trained to JADE hasn't done anything wrong. It's usually the abusive person who's in a bad mood, pokes them, pokes them, pokes them, pokes them, pokes them. The other person says, stop it. Why did you say that? Provoking the JADE. If they don't respond, the abuser will then punish them in some socially hidden way, usually. So jading is a red flag for someone who has had an unhealthy relationship and been trained into some instinctive behaviors that were not in their favor. Because what happens is, you're in that relationship, you're poked, you do something, you're immediately trained to respond with an explanation. The abusive person then takes your explanation, picks a couple words out of it, and explains how your explanation is proof that you're a bad person. And the cycle continues. So, says the guy who takes 6 careful hours to explain everything to an audience of 100 people. I've been to therapy. So this guy, oh, I felt so bad for him. Not bad enough to let him keep doing this shit. After the panel, he comes up to me, he's like, I want to explain. And I'm like, I know you do, but we're done. No, but I feel like you misunderstood what I was trying to say. And I'm like, it doesn't really matter. The panel's over. We're done. You go. When he's leaving, he's like, yeah, but I can really, and then he's like, he reaches out and grabs my arm, and I'm like, don't touch me. Which was entirely appropriate for me to say, because you don't get to touch other people, even if you're friendly and in a good, you don't get to touch other people without their permission. And like a handshake, that's an invited touch. Touching someone's arm, read the room a little. Okay? So there are many situations in which touching someone's arm, and we'll get to this boundary discussion later, is not okay. I didn't need to go, don't touch me, that's wrong! I just went, don't touch me. And he's like, oh, and then he wanted to explain more. Why he touched me, and I'm like, stop, conversation's over, we're going. I felt so bad for that dude, because I was like, you are just, holy shit. That's a lot of jade. That is someone who is panicked. Like, I could tell. He was like, but I just want to, I'm like, you don't need to. He's like, yeah, but if I don't. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, because if you don't, you think you're going to get punished for not explaining shit. You've been shut down for over-explaining shit. There's no more punishment happening. Just stop talking. But he waited. So we left. And then, so he showed up on the autograph line this morning. He did not behave inappropriately enough for me to involve myself. He spent long enough that I coincidentally ended up leaning on the table next to him, not making eye contact, playing on my phone. I have sufficient physical presence that I think he noticed me, because he very quickly ended the conversation. But yeah, so after being told quite thoroughly, no explanation, conversation is done, yeah, he then took the opportunity to get in line for an autograph so that he could explain how he didn't really mean to be bad, and he's from Brazil and things are terrible, and I'm just like, I'm overhearing this and I'm like, your political background does not have a strong explanation of why you fucking told women in an industry to defend men accused of sexual misconduct. So he left and we never saw him again. Go the fuck to therapy, Jesus Christ. If anything I've just described sounds uncomfortably like you, it is not an indicator that you have been abused. It is a suggestion that you may benefit from therapy. Therapy in Canada costs $200 per session unless you can access some community resources. That is, except for people who are blowing way too much money on plastic. That is out of many people's monthly expense range. That's fine. There's a book called Mind Over Mood. It is, according to the UK's NHS, about 85% as effective as going to see a therapist. It teaches you shit like boundaries and emotional journaling and recognition and shit. If you can't see a therapist, buy Mind Over Mood. If you are uncomfortable with the descriptions of behavior I have just given, buy Mind Over Mood and see if you can find a therapist you can talk to. If you check Google.
I know I'll never be the same. Shook my world so hard again. Wish I washed away my sin.